way. Turning a new corner.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Total Sport YouTube channel. And today we've got three very, very special guests. I'm here. I'm representing the Total Sport team, and we've got three of the Honest Football podcast, the whole team with us today. How are you guys? Are you all good?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
It's all good. So we've got Charlie, we've got Dan, and we've got Craig all with us. They all chat football on YouTube, guys. So first off, before we get into the EFL video that we are going to be doing, just talk to us about your pod and where we can find that in the world of YouTube.
Yeah, basically, I was going to say, to be honest, it all sort of, I think we're all sort of passionate fans from grassroots level all the way up to well, basically anything outside of the Premier League. And, you know, we're not there to sort of slag the Premier League off, but it's just, there's a lot of content out there and there's so much other amazing football going on that doesn't necessarily get the credit it deserves and the limelight that it probably deserves. So I think we try our best. You know, we try and cover a range of topics. Our main sort of output at the minute is probably the Championship, because it's one of the few leagues that's still going on properly around where we are. So, you know, in that sense, that's what we're doing a lot of. But yeah, anything that's basically outside of the Premier League, we probably try to cover at some point or another. So in terms of where you can find us, I'm the least technical out of all three of us. You probably better pass me to one of the other two lads on that front. But yeah.
So on YouTube, we are now the Honest Football Podcast. So we've got to the stage where we can have our name as the / at the end. So we're not random numbers and letters anymore. And we've got interviews with pros and things like that during lockdown, which helps us out a bit. But yeah, the Honest Football Podcast. Yeah,
so hopefully we'll be getting some honest answers today for what we're going to be doing is an EFL greatest. So if you'd have checked out in the Premier League, we did a transfer window special with Reese, who's a new team member, by the way. Go check out the new team video, which I'll leave a little bubble up here somewhere. And yeah, so we did sort of in betweeny opinion-y things, which is sort of what we'll be doing today, but just based on the EFL. So I'm going to start it off.
To be honest, there's been some really odd ones as well as good ones, but it's probably going to link it to my EFL player a lot. Like, I think Riyad Mahrez for Leicester, signed for Leicester for what was it, like 1.25 million from the half. That's got to be one of the most true signs, because it's just where he's gone to. Now, obviously, he won the Premier League with Leicester, and now in the Champions League with Manchester City, sold for 60 million. I think it's probably one of the best true signs ever.
I've gone for a different route. I didn't want to put Mahrez in because I had him in another category. So I've gone completely off the chart, and no one else will have gone near this, is Aaron Gunnarsson, okay, for Cardiff City. So signed on a free in 2011, Malky Mackay. Took him and played in the League Cup final in 2012 against Liverpool. Involved in 2 promotions, scored a crucial winner in the second run-in, and left in 2019 after 271 appearances and 25 goals. He also has one of the best long throws in the EFL, or had, and I've got a soft spot for them.
I do love a long throw, don't you? What about you, Charlie? What are you going for?
I've gone a bit sort of out there as well, because I've tried to cover all of the leagues in these answers. So I've actually gone, and it's a bit of a bizarre one, because he's just left who I'm going to talk about, was Ian Henderson, when he was signed for Rochdale on a free. And he's actually the League One all-time top goal scorer since it was called League One, which I think is overlooked quite a lot. You know, we talk about the Championship and things, but he's got a goal, I think it's 112 goals in 300 games, in a team that's really struggled in a big area that's surrounded by massive football clubs. I just think to have that kind of impact and basically single-handedly keeping them in League One most years, I think that he gets a bit underrated. And as you can see, he's now moved to Salford, and so I'd like to see it, Rochdale are struggling for goals, and it just makes you realise how integral he was. So for me, Ian Henderson's got to be the most shrewd signing out of all of them. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've gone for someone that was actually one of my contenders for the best player in one season. I've gone with Teemu Pukki of Norwich City. So obviously he got a free transfer out of nowhere. You know, he's this guy who flopped at Celtic, flopped everywhere really, and then he came to Norwich City, and all of a sudden it just seemed to click. And he scored 29 goals in the Championship season when they got promoted. Obviously, they're back in the Championship now. He also scored 11 goals in the Premier League last season after a really, really hot start. I remember him scoring at Anfield. As a Liverpool fan, obviously, I saw that and I was like, you know what, he's just some rubbish Championship striker. And then he went on and scored a hat-trick the next week. So, but in the end, I was proven right. But I just think it was a really, really shrewd signing from Norwich City. And obviously with the funds that they had, or the lack of funds that they had at the time, it was definitely the best they could have got. I've bent the rules here a little bit because it's meant to be from 2010 onwards, but I've gone with 2009 and I've gone with Sol Campbell, which is which
It's
is
funny. It's funny to say that because I wanted to say Sol Campbell, then I was like, when did he sign for Notts County? And then it was before 2010. I was like, I totally agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most bizarre signings ever. Like, the whole Notts County thing was just the whole really real big mind. Like, it really screwed my mind at the time as a young kid because it's like these billionaire owners go in there, appoint Sven-Goran Eriksson as director of football. Sol Campbell, Kasper Schmeichel goes there for $1 million, and Sol Campbell ends up playing one game and then tearing up his contract 3 days later.
I've gone a bit more classic. I've gone for the biggest fee that went the most wrong. So I've gone for Ross McCormack. Started the 2010s on fire. He was flying for Leeds and Fulham, scoring over 1 in 3 at both. Then the big £12 million move came to Aston Villa just as they went down. 3 goals and 20 appearances later, he fell out with new manager Steve Bruce. The decline began, out on loan a few times, released in 2019, and now he's playing in the National League. You can't get more of a flop than that.
Yeah, to be honest, if you've watched the prediction chart, I normally steal Daniel Cody's answers. so I have to agree on Ross McCormack because they said he just pretty much summed it up perfectly. Like, I think one of the excuses he got locked in his own house.
That's right.
Missing training, so
He did.
Yeah.
I've gone out there. You bent the rules earlier, so I'm going to bend it ever so slightly because the man I'm going to talk about, he started off in League Two and then went to the National League. And I can't believe I'm saying this because he also played for Ajax, Barcelona, and Juventus. And that man is Edgar Davids. And he's very, very short stint at Barnet, which for some reason, outside of people who maybe watch lower league football, never gets mentioned about. And it was the most bizarre circumstances you've ever heard about how he got into Barnet. He then goes there as a player manager, boots off the other manager, so it's just him. Then gives himself the shirt number 1 despite being a midfielder, which again, I have no idea how that comes about. And this is the bizarre bit. He was player manager, but refused to go to away games that required him to stay over the night. So if they were getting a hotel, he wouldn't play. And I don't honestly understand how that happened, how it continued to happen, and how he ended up being there for a second year despite relegating them. So for a man who's played for some of the best teams in the world ever, to have ended up at Barnet and doing what he's done was just baffling. And as a little side note, we interviewed a Northern Irish footballer called Shannon Clucas, whose claim to fame is that he basically put his 6 foot up in the air. So that's why we love real lower league football, because you're not going to get that in the Premier League. Yeah, there you go.
Definitely.
I've got to be honest. Until you said at the beginning, I thought we were talking about teams. So
we can talk about teams as well if you want.
Well, no. In terms of that, I suppose the obvious one, and I don't like going for obvious answers, as you'll see in the predictions game, which is why I'm bottom. But I do. But we have like a league table that goes.
Yeah, I've seen.
But I'm going to be obvious with this, and I do sort of think that Bournemouth with Eddie Howe, and I know it's a bit of a cliche thing because it probably started just before in 2009, but getting a team to the Premier League, and he did obviously have that break at Burnley, but the team continued, and I suppose there was flirting with relegation at one point out of League One back into League Two, but I think a club of that size and that stature to get to the Premier League and work their way through the leagues in terms of progression, there's other teams that have done similar, but I just think it's a small club with small resources.
I'll leave Daniel Cody to leave the obvious player for his answer. But like other contenders are like Andre Gray, who's obviously stepped up from non-league. Jamie Vardy, another one. So they're the 2 main ones. Obviously, Jamie Vardy's done a lot there. Played for England in that.
Okay, you've set that up perfectly.
Thanks,
so I've gone for a team and player combination. Ooh. And I'm sorry that I'm going to have to be biased on this one, but I couldn't see past it. I've tried to be literal because you talk about people like Vardy and that who sort of skipped a few steps and went back straight to the elite. So I'm going for Luton Town and Pelly Ruddock and Panzu. From 2014 to 2019, involved in the triple promotion from the National League to the Championship, both now established in the Championship. I mean, Pelly Ruddock's become a legend. He went up to, I think, 6th on the all-time league appearance list in the last week before the internationals. He started off as a centre-half that came on loan in the National League, didn't get trusted in the early EFL days, was playing out on the wing, and now he's a colossus in centre midfield. Every time we try to rest him, which is about once every year and a half, like Rotherham last week, he ends up back on at half-time to save the day. So if it's not Pelly Ruddock and Panzu, it can't be anyone.
Player-wise, Ollie Watkins. I think he's caused me great pain in the last few weeks. So I have to mention him. Jordan Rhodes is another one coming from Brett. He was actually really interesting stat I found about Jordan Rhodes. He actually won League Two Player of the Year after playing only 14 games in a league season, which is unbelievable. And then he had that season I might maybe be mentioning later on as well.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm probably a bit of a granddad, so it took me a while to work out what that actually meant, if I'm being brutally honest. So
You're not the only one.
So on that, I'm going to go for Adel Taarabt, okay? And the reason I say that is despite his reputation as being maybe slightly rotund, at one point Harry Redknapp benched him. I've heard a story that apparently if anyone passed it to him in their own half, they got a fine and all of that. But he single-handedly got QPR out of the Championship and into the Premier League. And the reason I say that is I think it was 46 games in a season. He scored 22 goals and got 21 assists. So you're literally getting something from him in every single game.
I don't know. I'm going to go for someone who could be up there in the upper echelons. But I'm gonna say it just because of the pure silk of the man that is Ruben Neves. 2017-18, he could be a shout for the best player in the one season because he was unbelievable. But I'm just doing it for the streets won't forget because of the goals that he scored, guys. I mean, that goal against Derby at home, if you remember, where he took it on his knee and volleyed it into the top corner. Just simply unbelievable. I have several mates who are Wolves fans and they absolutely adore him. And also another one, Sheffield Wednesday away. If you ever get the chance to watch this goal, Ruben Neves against Sheffield Wednesday away, passes it into the net like it's nothing. Unbelievable. And yeah, Ruben Neves for me. How about you, Dan?
I've gone much more niche on this because I've gone for a specific moment rather than a season.
Ooh.
Now, you're going to have to bear with me on this because it's a player who, up to that point, had had a good career outside the EFL, in the Premier League most namely. But there was a moment in a game that I had to mention, which was that Watford-Leicester playoff game. And the man is Manuel Almunia, purely because he never played a professional game after that season. But that penalty save, and then they went straight up the other end and nicked the tie via Troy Deeney. It's one of the most memorable EFL playoff moments.
Streets won't forget, I'll tell you what, I did have Ruben Neves before we come out because that goal, exactly what you said. It was pretty much spot on. I thought, yeah,
you said it all afternoon.
Great minds think alike, that's all.
Exactly. Charlie alluded to earlier with Streets won't forget is there was a game early 2010, I think the League Two game between Chesterfield and Crewe, and the game actually finished 5-5. Chesterfield were 4-1 down at half time, and then me, Charlie, and a few other mates, we went away for a weekend, and we were just watching Soccer Saturday, and we always go to Jack Lester, and Jack Lester was a legend for Nottingham Forest and for Chesterfield, and Chesterfield coming back, slowly coming back, and then at one point I said, "Oh, it'll end up 5-5, and at 5-3, and it ended 5-5, and place went mad." But yeah, it's something that I won't forget, and hopefully some Chesterfield fans won't forget, even though unfortunately.
It's going to be Wayne Rooney for Derby County because of the 32 red signing, shall we say, wearing number 32. I think that's had the biggest off-pitch impact financially for Derby County. Obviously, they've got in a little bit of trouble recently as well. But yeah, and it's obviously Mel Morris has now left the club, so the problems aren't down to him.
I've gone for a bit more of a heartwarming one. So I've gone for Joe Thompson of Rochdale. Excuse me.
Yes, I had him. Yeah.
He's a Rochdale legend. He's obviously had 2 spells at the club over a 12-13 year period. And most importantly, he's beaten cancer twice. He's been involved in loads of charity work and supporting NHS staff. He's been an inspiration to a generation. He got the Sir Tom Finney Award when he retired last year for his contribution to league football. So it was an easy pick for me, and I had to go for something that was a bit more heartwarming. So Joe Thompson for me.
Not the cynic that I am, Dan.
No.
I only got the same one, Charlie. Similar reasons?
I've got a few backup answers in case. So I would have, Joe Thompson is a brilliant story. I'm not going to choose, and there's a player called Neil Dans who most recently was at Tranmere, who has a podcast, which is sort of a club we adopted. And if you go on our channel, there's loads of reasons why you can see matchday vlogs and stuff. I spoke to a teammate of his called Renee Marsh-Brown, who's a non-league footballer and got his first national call up for the Guyanese national team in the Caribbean. And I didn't realise until speaking to him actually that the impact of someone who's played in the Premier League and the top leagues in England can have on a whole country. So Neil Dans, despite playing for a tiny island, has really raised the profile and has managed to actually improve the standard of play over there. And the reason I say that is through contacts of playing where he has. There's now lads coming over from England who have Guyanese heritage. Guyanese. What's the word? I've lost it now.
Heritage.
Heritage. That's it. Sorry. I can't do a territory, man.
To be honest, I think Lyle Taylor is now at Nottingham Forest. Obviously, he does breast cancer awareness, so he obviously dyes his hair pink for the month. So that's obviously a brilliant thing. One that's, they say, impact off the field, but it actually happened on the field. sort of unique story, and that was Leyton Orient, when obviously the owner obviously sat the manager and they weren't putting money into the club, players weren't getting paid, and then I think they were losing 3-1 to Colchester one game at Brisbane Road, and all the fans went onto the pitch and protested and pretty much abandoned the game, but they actually carried on playing the game. And I thought fans finally took a stance on like bad ownership, I think from Leyton Orient's point of view, and it basically got him out of the club. New owners, and now Leyton Orient are now the back in Football League, so I think that's got to be a big impact. Oh, I had a few candidates, to be honest, but I think Nuno Espirito Santos, Wolves, that season, as like you said about Ruben Neves, Wolves are unbelievable that season, and I thought he brought something totally different to the Championship, and it's brilliant to see him doing well with Wolves in the Premier League now.
But the one I've gone for over a single season is Nigel Adkins. And people will forget this. When in part of the double promotion for Southampton, he came in after the points deduction. Pardew had finished 7th. He took them up from League One. But then in the Championship, to go straight up again, the Championship, the hardest league in the world, in my view, to come up from League One and take them straight up, albeit a big club with a bigger budget, it's an incredible achievement that's overlooked. And although Pochettino went on to do great things, he was still very unlucky to be sacked in the Premier League.
Yeah, for me, I've gone from a team that was a big club in League One, but they had the most quintessentially British football team, and that is Charlton Athletic. And the reason I've gone for the season of Chris Powell, okay? Now, it was in the 2011-2012. They got over 100 points, lost only 5 games all season. And more importantly, his squad had the average age of about 31, and he included players such as, and this is why I love them, this is why I wanted to pick them, Gary Docherty, Leon Court, Jason Yule, Bradley Wright-Phillips. Now, to get a team promoted with those lads, for me, that deserves to be an incredible thing with over 100 points. So for me, that is the best season in the EFL history.
Definitely. I've gone with, again, another recent one. Because this guy could be lauded as one of the best managers in the EFL anyway. I've gone with Gareth Ainsworth, Wycombe Wanderers. Getting Wycombe Wanderers promoted, honestly, I don't know. I don't know how it's happened, boys. To be honest with you, they got it obviously in controversial circumstances last season, but they still did it. You know, they still won, playing the most anti-football way of playing football ever, with big Adebayo Akinfenwa up front. I'm still questioning whether it's actually happened, whether I'm pinching myself, whether it's something from Football Manager. In terms of the best manager over the period, I've gone with Chris Wilder for obviously Northampton and then Sheffield United. What he did with Northampton, firstly, getting them promoted at such a canter in the end. They absolutely tore apart that league. We spoke to striker Mark Richards earlier this year, and he just spoke so highly of Chris Wilder and how he played. I'll leave a link, another bubble up there somewhere. And then obviously with Sheffield United, he took over, lost his first 3 or 4 games, Sheffield United in League One, and then got them promoted at a canter, and then obviously finished 10th in his first Championship season, and then got them promoted, finishing second. So I think it's just a fantastic achievement. And he continues to shine even in the Premier League. Yeah, I haven't had a great start this season, but I'm sure he'll turn it around and Sheffield United will be absolutely fine.
Well, 2 of the 3 people I had for this list have already been mentioned. They were Wilder and Ainsworth. So I'll go for my third one. And it's a similar story to Ainsworth, really, but I've gone for John Coleman at Accrington. So he came back for his second stint in 2014. Both stints he's had over a 40% win rate. Accrington, of course, the famous Who Are They club for people from a generation slightly before ours. But he just defies the odds. He's not the most likeable man. Some of his interviews are absolutely scandalous. I think there was a famous one after the Derby Cup tie a few years ago. But he's taken them on cup runs. He took them up to League One, and he's kept them there consistently with one of the 4 lowest budgets in the league every season. There's no alternative to me other than Wilder or Ainsworth. So if anyone else has got someone else, that's silly. But Charlie's next. So
yeah.
So I've got 2 options. Again, I alluded to them earlier, Bournemouth and Eddie Howe. But I think, and this will shock these 2, because if you listen to any previous episodes, it's a man I've not been a fan of. But actually, I think I have to probably go for someone like Carl Robinson. And the reason I say that is, and just go with me, he's taken MK Dons, which can be a divisive club. I appreciate that, you know, the history of them. But if you take away that element of it, take a club on with very little support and network, you know, in terms of fans in the ground and that, and very limited budget, who are hemorrhaging money, you know, year after year. Take them all the way up to the Championship, then to be doing well at Oxford and pretty much getting them, you know, I think another day they probably would have beaten Wycombe in that playoff final, which, we did a prediction of it. I say that, all three of us, I think, predicted Wycombe. But it was, to take again, another small club like that, I think he just works really well in small scenarios. He had a slight blip at Charlton, a bigger club. But I just think in small clubs, he's a fantastic manager and he really knows how to get the best out of players. So actually to do that consistently with, starting at the age of 29 as well, I think he was the youngest manager in the Football League at that point. It's quite a daunting prospect. So to do that for me, probably over the last 10 years, he probably is one of the best managers in the league. And I can't believe I'm saying that.
Oh, you, Craig?
Yeah, I think for me, the two choices are, obviously, one's got to be Chris Hughton. He took Newcastle up at the start of 2010. That's under pressure because obviously Newcastle is a massive club, and for them to get relegated is unheard of for our generation. So he's done well there. And he obviously took Brighton up as well. Obviously, Brighton, we never thought that Brighton would be a Premier League team, and he was close before, got to playoffs. Unlucky with those, but finally took them up automatically, and obviously kept them up in the Premier League, to be honest. And I think his work gets a bit unrecognised on that. But Neil Warnock is no one. Three different club promotions. Obviously with QPR, Cardiff. It's probably another one. I can't remember who the other one was, but it's absolutely Neil Warnock is. I think is absolutely a credit that he's still going to this day.
I'm going to start because I've already mentioned this guy, Jordan Rhodes, Huddersfield Town in League One back in 2011-12. He scores 36 goals in 40 games. I mean, it's hard to comprehend. And it's someone who obviously in the last couple of years has fallen off, but he also had an unbelievable record at Blackburn Rovers until he left for Sheffield Wednesday, really, and that's when his career took a downturn.
I've gone for one that was mentioned earlier, which was the Adel Taarabt season, because Charlie mentioned his competitions, the 22 goals, 21 assists in the league, 19 goals, 15 assists. He was just unstoppable that season. I know it went wrong for him very quickly after Warnock left in the Premier League, but that season in the EFL, I don't think there's been a championship season where one player outside of a striker has carried a player to promotion or as close to solo as he has. So that Taarabt season for me is one of the best ones I remember.
So in terms of a one season, it came up earlier, but obviously that first season with Teemu Pukki and, you mentioned earlier, Chris, about the 29 goals, but I think there was probably a bit of pressure because, you go from somewhere like Celtic and Bromby as well, which are a massive club, to then come to Norwich where probably expectations are slightly different and to hit the ground running as quickly as he did. So for me, in terms of one season, I know he's been mentioned already, but yeah, Teemu Pukki and his at that 29 goal season was fantastic. So yeah.
I think Taarabt will obviously be up there as well, but I think Danny Ings at Burnley 2013-14 season scored 22 goals that season, won Championship Player of the Year. I think that he's just been we completely forget that Danny Ings obviously was with Burnley pretty early in his career, and he's very obviously successful there. Obviously moved to Liverpool. Unfortunately, injuries hampered him, but now he's back playing regularly for Southampton. It's great to see he's scoring goals now in the England setup.
I've gone for probably one of the most classic choices. I've gone for a man who's, since the start of the 2010-11 season, has scored 146 league goals, has been involved in 3 promotions at different levels in the EFL, and kept a team up almost single-handedly. And that man is Billy Sharp. He's still scoring goals in the Premier League now at 34. But in 10-11 it started, he kept Doncaster up with so many goals. He was brilliant that season and was involved for them the year before when they went up to start with. Joined Southampton in January 2012. People forget that Nigel Adkins season I mentioned. He scored 9 goals and 11 starts the second half of that year. Crucial goals to their promotion. And then, of course, you mentioned the Chris Wilder spell at Sheffield United, and Billy Sharp was the right-hand man, leading them, firing them to 2 promotions from League One to the Premier League, and then scored in the top tier for his hometown club. He's had off-field tragedy and things that have been widely reported in that time as well. But to produce the career he has in spite of that is incredible. He's mine by a country mile.
We'll go to Charlie. What are you up to? What do you think?
Well, I had a couple of answers for this, and they've all gone. So I've been left with one answer, which I did reveal to these lads earlier. I don't know I'll get pelters for because I've just mentioned their club, but that is MK Dons, and I'm going to have to go for someone who's played 800 games, and that is Dean Lewington. Now, I'm not probably his biggest fan in terms of watching him recently. I would argue how he's got to 800 sometimes can be a bit argued, but no, just we've seen him live a couple of times. But he, you can't knock that. Staying at the same club, being loyal to them for 800 odd games, and I think actually probably comes across as quite a humble person. So for me, be it that he's, hasn't necessarily won anything major, but he's played in League Two, he's played in League One, he's played in the Championship. He's been part of a team that's gone up and down, a bit of instability. He was there at the beginning of it, whether you like him or not. Him to stick through that and to achieve 800 games, for me, I think, as a ability-wise, is he the best player in the EFL? Probably not. But as a football fan and, people who love the game, you love to hear those stories. So for me, probably that's why I've probably gone over heart over head maybe a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to go for the obvious ones, but I'm going to go for someone that obviously we haven't really spoke about. I'm going to say James Coppinger at Doncaster Rovers. Obviously, 589 games now for Doncaster. Been there since 2004. So that's obviously a long time for him, for any player, to be honest. You don't get that nowadays, as we said about Dean Lewington. Won the league with them to promotion to the Championship on the final day against Brentford, which was, I said earlier. But yeah, James Coppinger, regular, always scores goals. No complaints.
Okay, so I'm going to go with, unfortunately, a guy who is no longer with us. He scored 96 goals in 457 Cardiff City appearances. Peter Whittingham, player who was so crucial for Cardiff City. Scored in his best season, he scored 23 goals in 51 games overall. Simply a wonderful technician, the wand of a left foot, a wizard on and off the field, and unfortunately passed away earlier this year. But yeah, I genuinely think he has got a massive case for being the best EFL player, definitely of the last decade, if not of all time. But yeah, ending on a somber note. But anyway, before we go, just guys, as I know you did at the start of the podcast, but give us a shout. Where can we find you on social medias, on YouTube, and all that stuff?
So you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3, and you can search for us on YouTube at the Honest Football Podcast.
There you go. So yeah, go drop these guys a follow. It's been a massive pleasure having you on, and hopefully we'll see more of you in the future. Maybe we'll do something at the end of this season as well. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and make sure everyone to go drop a subscription to TotalSport. We're so close to 1,100. Go do that just for the culture. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.